Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku had 5-leaf clover grimoire? Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The world was not built on equality. It was built on the capricious whims of genetics, a biological lottery where 80% of the population held the winning tickets, and the remaining 20% were left to sweep up the confetti. Izuku Midoriya learned this at the age of 4. The lesson didn't come from a textbook or a lecture. It came in the sterile white office of a doctor who looked at an X-ray side and dismantled a child's dreams with the clinical detachment of a mechanic declaring a car totaled. "You should give it up, kid." That sentence had been the period at the end of his life story before the first paragraph had even been written. While other children ignited fireworks from their palms or floated their toys with telekinesis, Izuku remained anchored to the earth by the mundane gravity of his own biology. He was the extra toe joint. He was the evolutionary dead end. He was the zero in a world of ones. But humans are stubborn creatures. Even when the mind accepts a truth, the heart often refuses to sign the paperwork. Mizurufu Junior High. 10 years later, the afternoon sun filtered through the windows of the classroom, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air, motes that were likely dead skin cells, chalk dust, and the microscopic debris of 30 volatile teenagers. The teacher, a man whose enthusiasm for education had long since been eroded by the grind of the public school system, slapped a stack of papers against his podium. "Since you're all third years, it's time to think seriously about your futures," he announced, his voice droning like a dying fan. "I would pass out these career aptitude forms, but..." He paused, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. He grabbed the stack of papers and threw them into the air. "I assume you all want to be heroes." The classroom erupted. It was a cacophony of cheers and the activation of quirks. Hands turned into rock, eyes elongated, and minor telekinetic waves rattled the desks. It was a display of individuality, of power, of potential, except for one desk near the back. Izuku Midoriya sat with his head down, his hand trembling slightly as he gripped his pen. He tried to shrink into himself, to become part of the wood grain of his desk. "Don't look at me, just let the moment pass. Don't make me a target." Yes, you all have wonderful quirks," the teacher said, waving a hand to settle them down. "But you know it's against the rules to use them in school." "Hey, teach!" The voice cut through the noise like a whip crack. Katsuki Bakugo leaned back in his chair, feet resting on his desk, an expression of supreme arrogance plastered across his face. "Don't lump me in with these extras. Dealing with their weak-ass quirks is just gonna hold me back. I'm aiming for the top." The class broke into outraged murmurs, but Bakugo ignored them, his red eyes gleaming with predatory confidence. "I aced the mock exams," Bakugo continued. "I'm the only one here with the stuff to go all the way. I'm going to surpass All Might and become the top hero. I'm carving my name into the history books as the richest, most famous hero of all time." "Oh, right," the teacher said, checking his clipboard, oblivious to the rising tension. "Bakugo, you're aiming for UA High, aren't you?" The room went silent. UA. The national fortress of heroism. The acceptance rate was abysmal. The entrance exam was a meat grinder. And the teacher squinted at the paper, then looked up, his eyes landing squarely on the boy trying to turn invisible in the back row. "Midoriya, didn't you put down UA as your first choice too?" Time stopped. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was a vacuum, sucking the oxygen out of the room. Every head turned. Every pair of eyes fixed on Izuku. He felt the weight of their gazes, heavy and suffocating. Then, the explosion. Not a literal one, but a detonation of laughter. "Midoriya? No way! You can't get into the hero course just by studying. They'd break him in half." Izuku stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "There's no rule against it," he stammered, his voice rising in a desperate attempt to defend a dream he barely believed in anymore. "They got rid of the quirk requirement. It's just, there's never been a precedent, that's all." Slam! An explosion rocked Izuku's desk, sending him flying backward. He hit the floor hard, the wind knocked out of him. Smoke drifted up from the scorched wood where Bakugo's hand had been a second ago. "Hey, Deku!" Bakugo loomed over him, small sparks popping in his palms like angry fireflies. You're worse than these rejects. You're quirkless. You're nothing. You think you can rub shoulders with me? No. Wait, Kaken. Izuku scrambled back, his back hitting the wall. He raised his hands in surrender. I'm not trying to compete with you. I swear. It's been my dream since I was little. And, well, I won't know unless I try. Try? Bakugo's voice dropped to a menacing growl. Smoke curled around his face. Try what? Taking the entrance exam just to act like a tourist? What can you do? You're defenseless. You just die. The class laughed again. It was the background track of Izuku's life. He looked down, biting his lip until he tasted iron. After school, the cleaning duty roster had been mercifully short, but Izuku lingered. He scrolled through the hero news on his phone, muttering stats to himself, trying to recalibrate his mood. The incident with the giant villain that morning. Kamui Woods had been impressive, but Empty Lady's debut was clearly about marketability over efficiency. He picked up his notebook, Hero Analysis for the Future, number 13. It was ragged, filled with scribbles, sketches, and obsessive notes. It was his Bible. It was the only thing that made him feel like he was participating in the world of heroes rather than just watching it. We're not done talking, Deku. Izuku froze. Bakugo stood in the doorway, flanked by his two lackeys. Keikaken, Izuku said, instinctively clutching the notebook to his chest. Bakugo walked over, snatched the notebook from Izuku's hands, and held it up. Hero Analysis for the Future? He scoffed. Seriously? You're still doing this crap? This is delusional. Give it back. Izuku pleaded, reaching for it. Boom. Bakugo clamped his hands around the notebook and detonated a small explosion. The cover blackened instantly. Smoke rose from the charred paper. Ah! Izuku cried out. That's mean. Bakugo didn't answer. He turned and tossed the smoking book out the open window. Izuku watched in horror as it tumbled down 3 stories toward the koi pond below. Most top-tier heroes have stories about their school days, Bakugo said, his voice calm, chillingly conversational. I want my origin story to be perfect. The only student from this mediocre middle school to make it to UA. I'm a perfectionist, see? He placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. The heat was intense, burning through the fabric of the uniform. Izuku trembled, unable to speak, unable to move. The fear was a physical weight, paralyzing his muscles. So, Bakugo whispered, leaning close, don't even think about applying to UA, nerd. Bakugo walked away, his lackeys chuckling behind him. Izuku stood there, shaking, tears pricking the corners of his eyes. He wanted to scream. He wanted to fight back. But his body refused to obey. He was weak. That was the truth of the universe. At the door, Bakugo stopped. He glanced back over his shoulder. You know, if you want to be a hero that badly, there might be a quick way to do it. Izuku looked up. Believe that you'll be born with a quirk in your next life, Bakugo sneered, and take a swan dive off the roof. Izuku whipped around, anger finally flaring in his chest. Don't look at me like that, Bakugo warned, his fingers sparking. Unless you have a death wish. Izuku wilted. He watched them leave. Idiot, Izuku thought, the tears finally spilling over. If I actually jumped, that would be instigation of suicide. Think before you speak. The koi pond. The water was murky. The fish were nibbling at the charred remains of his notebook. That's not food, dumb fish, Izuku muttered, fishing the soggy book out of the water. He shook it, droplets of pond water splattering the pavement. Hero Analysis for the Future. The ink was running, the pages warped. Mom, Izuku whispered to the empty air. Even if everyone else gave up on me. I just wanted you to tell me I could do it. Flashbacks of his childhood assaulted him. His mother crying, apologizing to him. I'm sorry, Izuku. I'm sorry. That wasn't what I needed to hear, he said, clutching the ruined book. He started walking. He needed to go home. He needed to wash the smell of burnt paper and pond water off his skin. He took the shortcut under the underpass. It was dark, the acoustic shadows amplifying his footsteps. Is it really impossible? He wondered. Is biology truly destiny? Does the lack of a genetic factor mean my spirit is worthless? A sound came from the manhole cover behind him. A wet, squelching sound. Izuku turned. Liquid. A massive, undulating mass of dark green sludge poured out of the sewer grate, rising up like a tidal wave of filth. Two manic, yellow eyes floated in the muck. A medium-sized invisibility cloak, the sludge hissed, its voice bubbling and distorted. Izuku froze. His survival instincts screamed run, but his legs were lead. Don't worry, the villain said, lunging forward. I'm just going to take over your body. It'll only hurt for about 45 seconds. You'll feel better soon. The sludge hit him. It was cold. It tasted like oil and rot. It forced its way into his mouth, his nose. Izuku clawed at the fluid, but his fingers passed right through. He couldn't breathe. I can't breathe. You can't grab me, the villain laughed. I'm fluid. Thanks for the help, kid. You're my hero. Panic set in. His vision began to spot with white light. Is this it? Am I dying? Here? Alone? Without ever doing anything? Please. Someone. Help. The darkness was closing in. His strength was fading. His hand, clutching the soggy notebook, went limp. Clang. The manhole cover flew into the air. Have no fear. A voice. Booming. Powerful. It reverberated off the concrete walls of the tunnel. Why? The sludge villain recoiled. A figure stood at the entrance of the tunnel. Tall. Muscular. Radiating an aura of absolute invincibility. He held a bag of groceries in one hand. Because, the figure shouted, crouching low, I am here, Texas. Smash! The wind pressure alone was devastating. It hit the sludge villain like a physical wall, scattering the liquid body instantly. Izuku felt the pressure release, the sludge blasting away from his airways. He gasped, sucking in sweet, precious air, before consciousness slipped away entirely. The rooftop. When Izuku woke up, he was being slapped lightly on the cheek. Hey! Hey! Good! Izuku's eyes snapped open. A face, the face, hovered over him. Blonde hair in two distinctive tufts. A smile that could outshine the sun. All Might! Izuku scrambled backward, his heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs. Glad you're okay. All Might laughed, a deep belly sound. Apologies for getting you caught up in my villain hunting. I don't usually make mistakes like that, but I was in a high-spirited mood in a strange land. Izuku was hyperventilating. He looked around. The sludge villain was bottled up in 2 soda bottles. You captured him. Can I get an autograph? He fumbled for his notebook. He opened it to a blank page, and froze. The signature was already there. Large, bold, taking up 2 pages. He already did it. Izuku screamed, bowing rapidly. Thank you? It's a family heirloom. I'll treasure it forever. Okay. All Might gave a thumbs up. Well, I need to get this guy to the police. See you on the flip side. All Might crouched, his legs tensing with immense power. Wait. Izuku reached out. I have to ask you something. No time. All Might launched himself into the air. Izuku didn't think. He just jumped. He grabbed onto All Might's leg. Hey! Let go! I love my fans, but this is too much. All Might shouted, the wind whipping around them as they soared over the city. If I let go now, I'll die. Izuku screamed, his face flapping in the wind. Oh. Good point. They landed on a rooftop. Izuku collapsed, gasping for air, his adrenaline crashing. That was dangerous, All Might scolded. Knock on the door to get down. I have to go. Wait. Izuku scrambled up. Please. Just one question. All Might paused, his back turned. Steam began to rise from his body. I don't have a quirk, Izuku stammered, staring at the ground. I've been bullied my whole life because of it. Everyone says I'm useless. But saving people, it's the coolest thing in the world. He looked up, tears in his eyes. Can someone without a quirk, can I still be a hero like you? Silence. The steam around All Might thickened. Then, with a soft poof, the figure seemed to deflate. Izuku blinked. The muscle-bound giant was gone. In his place stood a skeletal man with sunken eyes and messy hair, coughing up blood. What? Izuku screamed. An imposter? You're so skinny. I assure you, I am All Might, the man wheezed, wiping blood from his chin. He sat down heavily. You know how guys flex at the pool to look buff? It's like that. No way. Izuku's world was spinning. All Might lifted his shirt. Izuku gasped. A massive, spiraling scar covered the left side of his torso. It looked like a crater, a testament to a violence Izuku couldn't comprehend. Respiratory system destroyed. Stomach removed. I've done so many surgeries, I've lost count, All Might said, his voice grave. I can only do hero work for about 3 hours a day now. 5 years ago, a villain did this. Toxic chainsaw? Izuku asked. You know your stuff. But no. That punk couldn't scratch me. This fight. The public doesn't know about it. All Might looked Izuku in the eye. I smiled to show the pressure of heroes and to trick the fear inside of me. Pros are always risking their lives. So honestly? He looked away. No. I don't think you can become a hero without a quirk. The words hit Izuku harder than the explosion. Harder than the sludge. It's good to have dreams, young man. But you have to be realistic. All Might stood up and walked toward the door. If you want to save people, become a police officer. They get a lot of crap, but it's a fine profession. The door clicked shut. Izuku was alone on the roof. The wind howled. Be realistic. The number one hero. The symbol of peace. The man who always smiled. He had said no. Izuku walked to the edge of the railing. He looked down at the city. It was so far down. Take a swan dive. Don't be stupid, Izuku whispered to himself, clutching his chest. Don't be stupid. He turned and began the long walk down the stairs. Tatooine shopping district. Izuku walked without seeing. The world was gray. The sounds of the city were muffled, as if he were underwater. He was right, Izuku thought. I knew it. I always knew it. I just wanted someone to tell me otherwise. But now, the definitive source has spoken. He stopped. A crowd had gathered ahead. Smoke billowed into the sky. Explosions rattled the windows of nearby shops. A villain attack? Instinctively, he moved toward it. Why am I going? I should just go home. But his feet moved on their own. He pushed through the crowd. Can you see? It's bad. Where are the heroes? Izuku reached the police barricade and looked. His blood ran cold. It was the sludge villain. How? All Might had him. Then he remembered. When he grabbed All Might's leg. The bottles must have fallen. This is my fault. The sludge was massive now, feeding on the chaos. Fires burned everywhere. Pro-heroes were standing around, helpless. I can't get close. Death Arm shouted, shielding his face. This guy grabs you instantly. My wood quirk is useless against fire. Kamui Woods yelled. I can't fit down the street. Empty Lady complained. They were waiting. Waiting for someone with the right quirk. And in the center of the inferno, trapped within the sludge, was a boy. The villain was suffocating him, trying to hijack his body just like he had done to Izuku. The boy was thrashing, exploding, creating more fire, which only made it harder for the heroes to approach. Izuku squinted. Through the smoke and the muck, he saw a face. Katsuki Bakugo. His eyes were wide. Terror. Pure, unadulterated terror. He wasn't screaming defiance. He was drowning. Izuku looked at the heroes. They were watching. They were strategizing. They were doing nothing. It's my fault. I caused this. I'm useless. I'm powerless. Bakugo's eyes met Izuku's. For a split second, the arrogance was gone. It was just a plea for help. Do something. The thought wasn't a conscious decision. It was a command from his soul. Izuku's legs moved. Hey! Come back! You'll get yourself killed! Death Arm shouted. Izuku didn't hear him. He ducked under the barricade and sprinted. His shoes slapped against the asphalt. The heat was searing. What am I doing? What am I doing? He had no plan. He had no weapon. He had no quirk. The sludge villain saw him. You! The brat from before. The villain raised a tendril of sludge to crush him. Izuku acted on pure instinct. He remembered his notes. Target the eyes. He swung his backpack with everything he had. It flew through the air, the corner striking the villain's wet eye. Gah! The villain flinched. The grip on Bakugo loosened slightly. Izuku clawed at the sludge. Kaken! Deku? Bakugo gasped, coughing smoke. Why are you here? My legs moved on their own. Izuku screamed, tears streaming down his face as he clawed uselessly at the fluid. I don't know why. But you look like you were asking for help. Die! The sludge villain roared, recovering. I'm done playing with you. A massive wave of sludge rose up, poised to crash down and obliterate both of them. Izuku looked up. Death was coming. He squeezed his eyes shut. He threw his hands up in a pathetic attempt to shield Bakugo. I want to save him. I want to be a hero. Give me the power to save him. The air shifted. It wasn't a sound. It was a sensation. Like the drop in pressure before a hurricane. The fire around them didn't flicker. It seemed to shy away. The roar of the crowd was sucked into a void. A crack appeared in the air in front of Izuku. A jagged fracture in reality, bleeding black mist. From the void, something materialized. It was a book. But not like any book Izuku had ever seen. It hovered at eye level, filthy and tattered. The cover was a deep, necrotic black, stained with grime and what looked like dried blood. On the cover, faintly embossed in fading gold that seemed to absorb the light of the fires, was a clover. A 5-leaf clover. What is this? The villain paused, confused by the sudden apparition. Izuku felt a pulse. A heartbeat that wasn't his own. It came from the book. It was heavy, angry, and incredibly loud. It screamed of rejection. It screamed of a refusal to accept fate. Grab it. Izuku reached out. His hand wrapped around the spine of the grimoire. The book fell open. The pages flipped wildly, faster than the eye could follow, kicking up a wind that smelled of rust and ash. Then it stopped. A hilt protruded from the center of the open book. A rusted, iron hilt, wrapped in dirty cloth. Die! The villain swung the sludge hammer down. Izuku grabbed the hilt with both hands. It was heavy. Unimaginably heavy. It felt like he was trying to lift a car. His muscles screamed instantly. His bones creaked. Move! With a roar that tore his throat, Izuku wrenched the object free. It was a sword. A massive slab of rusted black iron, easily as tall as he was and wider than his torso. It was crude, ugly, and looked more like a tombstone than a weapon. The sludge hammer descended. Izuku didn't know how to use a sword. He just swung. He pivoted his hips, using the sheer, crushing weight of the metal to carry the momentum. Clang! The blade met the sludge, but it didn't splash. Where the rusted iron touched the villain's fluid body, the quirk stopped. There was a sound like static electricity discharging, zzzt. The sludge lost its cohesion. It didn't behave like a liquid controlled by a mind anymore. It behaved like dead water. The force of the swing didn't just cut. It shattered the villain's control. The massive arm of sludge dissolved instantly into a rain of sewage. What? The villain shrieked, recoiling. My quirk. Why isn't it working? Izuku stumbled, the momentum of the sword dragging him forward. He planted his feet, the asphalt cracking under the strain. He was panting, his arms feeling like they were being torn from their sockets. It's heavy, so heavy. But in his mind a voice whispered. A raspy, chuckling voice that seemed to come from the sword itself. Not bad, kid. The villain lashed out again, sending a spear of liquid fast. I don't know what trick you're pulling, but you're dead. Izuku couldn't dodge. The sword was too heavy to lift quickly. Block. He turned the flat of the blade toward the attack. The spear hit the metal. Again, that static sound. The quirk factor was nullified on contact. The liquid splashed harmlessly against the iron, turning into muddy water that soaked Izuku's shoes. Izuku looked at the sword. He looked at the villain. He realized something. This sword, it didn't just cut. It killed powers. It was the antithesis of this superhuman society. Kaken! Izuku yelled, gripping the hilt until his knuckles turned white. Get down! Bakugo, shocked out of his paralysis, ducked. Izuku heaved the sword up again. The muscles in his back screamed. He stepped forward, dragging the blade, sparks flying as the tip scraped the road. Rah! He swung upward. An uppercut of rusted iron, the blade connected with the main mass of the villain. The effect was catastrophic for the creature. The fluidity that kept him alive and intangible was erased. For a split second, the villain became solid, vulnerable. The force of the blow, combined with the nullification, lifted the villain off the ground. His eyes rolled back. The sludge holding Bakugo lost its tensile strength and splattered onto the pavement. Bakugo fell free, coughing and gasping. Izuku stood there, the massive sword resting on the ground, the tip buried inches into the concrete. He was shaking. His vision was blurring. The villain, now a puddle of confused, semi-conscious slime, tried to reform. Whoosh. All Might landed. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't laughing. He looked furious at himself. I really am pathetic, All Might muttered, steam rising from his body as he forced himself past his limit one more time. Leaving it to a child. While I watched scared, he grabbed the villain's loose eye. Detroit. Smash! The air pressure changed the weather. A tornado of wind blasted through the street, scattering the remaining sludge across the entire district, and putting out the fires in an instant. Rain began to fall from the sudden atmospheric shift. Izuku shielded his face. The sword was an anchor keeping him from being blown away. When the dust settled, All Might stood victorious. The crowd erupted. He changed the weather with a punch. Amazing! All Might saved the day. Izuku let go of the hilt. The sword hit the ground with a heavy thud. His knees gave out. He collapsed. The grimoire floated gently down, closing itself and landing beside his head. The aftermath. The scolding was brutal. You idiot! Death Arms shouted, pointing a finger in Izuku's face. You were suicidal. You could have gotten yourself killed and the hostage. Do you have a death wish? And what the hell was that weapon? Kamui Woods demanded, eyeing the black sword that lay on the asphalt. It looked dormant now, just a hunk of junk, but they had all seen it erase the villain. Did you manifest a quirk? Carrying a support item that dangerous is illegal. Izuku sat on the back of an ambulance, a blanket wrapped around him. He didn't answer. He couldn't. He was staring at his hands. They were blistered and raw. On the other side of the blockade, the heroes were praising Bakugo. You were tough, kid. That quirk is flashy. You'll be a great sidekick. Bakugo wasn't listening. He was staring at Izuku. He was staring at the black book sitting on the ambulance bumper. Eventually, the police let Izuku go. They confiscated the sword, but when a burly officer tried to lift it to put it in the evidence van, he couldn't budge it. It took 3 men to drag it into the truck. They let Izuku keep the book, dismissing it as personal effects since it didn't seem to do anything on its own. Izuku walked home in the dark. He felt drained, hollowed out. I moved. I actually moved. He clutched the grimoire to his chest. It felt warm. Deku! Izuku turned. Bakugo ran up to him, stopping a few feet away. He was panting. I didn't ask for your help. Bakugo yelled, his voice cracking. And you didn't save me. I was fine. Don't look down on me. You damn nerd. He spun around and stomped off. Izuku watched him go. Well, that's typical. He sighed and turned back toward his house. I am here. All Might slid out from around a corner in a pose that was meant to be heroic but looked mostly ridiculous in a quiet residential street. All Might? Izuku jumped. Wait, where did you come from? The reporters. I shook them. All Might laughed. Then poof. He reverted to his skeletal form, coughing up a spray of blood. Young man, All Might said, wiping his mouth. I have a confession to make. I scolded you earlier. I told you to be realistic. He took a step forward. The streetlights flickered. But back there, out of all the heroes on the scene, you were the only one who acted. Izuku's breath hitched. You who were quirkless. You, who had everything to lose and nothing to gain. All Might smiled, a genuine, soft smile. Top heroes all have stories about their school days, and most of them have one thing in common. Their bodies moved before they could think. Izuku clutched the grimoire tighter. Tears began to well up again. That happened to you today, didn't it? Yes, Izuku whispered. All Might looked at the dirty, 5-leaf clover book in Izuku's arms. He didn't know what it was. He felt a strange unease looking at it, a primal warning that it was something other. But he looked at the boy holding it. You proved me wrong. You forced fate's hand. All Might pointed at him. You can become a hero. Izuku fell to his knees. He pressed his forehead against the pavement and cried. It was the validation he had starved for his entire life. But as he cried, the grimoire on the ground beside him flipped open one more time. A small shadow rose from the pages. It was tiny, horned, and winged. It hovered just behind Izuku, unseen by All Might. The shadow grinned, revealing jagged teeth. Yeah, the devil whispered in a voice only Izuku's subconscious could hear. We're going to have some fun, kid. The street lights of Muzutafu buzzed with a low, electric hum, a sound that usually blended into the background noise of the city. Tonight, however, to Izuku Midoriya, everything felt sharper. Louder. The texture of the asphalt under his knees, the smell of ozone and rain in the air, the frantic beating of his own heart. It was all amplified. He was still on his knees, tears streaming down his face, the gravel digging into his skin. Above him, the skeletal figure of Tashinori Yagi, All Might, looked down with a gaze that held a mixture of pride and profound curiosity. You can become a hero. Those words echoed in the chambers of Izuku's mind, bouncing off the walls of a lifetime of rejection. They were the antidote to every useless, Deku, and give up he had ever heard. But as the sobbing subsided into ragged breaths, reality began to seep back in. The adrenaline of the villain attack was fading, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion. And there was something else. A weight, not metaphorical, but physical. The grimoire lying next to him. All Might coughed, a wet, rattling sound that broke the sacred silence. He wiped a speck of blood from his chin and offered a hand to Izuku. Up you get, young Midoriya. The police will be circling back soon, and I'm afraid my time in this form is strictly limited. Izuku took the hand. All Might's grip was bony but firm. As Izuku stood, he instinctively scooped up the tattered black book. As soon as his skin touched the cover, a jolt of static electricity raced up his arm. It wasn't painful, but it was cold. It felt like dipping his hand into freezing water. All Might's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at the book. That item, at the scene. You pulled a massive sword from it, didn't you? Ah, yes, Izuku stammered, looking down at the 5-leaf clover embossed on the grime-encrusted cover. I don't know what happened. I wanted to save Kaken, and then this mist appeared, and the book was there. It felt like it was waiting for me. All Might rubbed his chin. A latent quirk manifestation? No. That's unheard of at your age. And the nature of it. The number one hero stepped closer. He placed a hand near the book but didn't touch it. I've faced many villains, young man. I've sensed many powers. My own quirk, one for all, is a torch passed down through generations, accumulating power. It feels warm. Radiant. All Might looked Izuku in the eye, his expression grave. That book feels empty. Void. It doesn't hum with power like a normal quirk. It feels like a hole in the world. Izuku swallowed hard. Is that bad? It depends on who wields it, All Might said, his signature smile returning, though it looked stretched on his gaunt face. Power is just a tool. But we have much to discuss. Young Midoriya, I have a proposal for you. The Midoriya apartment. The reunion with his mother was, predictably, a hydration hazard. Inko Midoriya didn't just cry, she produced geysers. She fretted over his blistered hands, his ruined uniform, and the smell of sludge that still lingered faintly in his hair. Izuku accepted the fussing with a tired smile, assuring her he was fine, that the heroes had checked him out, which was a half-truth. They had mostly yelled at him. Once the floodwaters had receded and Inko had gone to bed, Izuku retreated to his room. It was a shrine to All Might. Posters, figures, bedsheets. The smiling face of the symbol of peace beamed at him from every angle. Usually, this room was his sanctuary. Tonight it felt different. The smiling faces felt like they were watching him. He sat at his desk, the only clear surface in the room. He placed the grimoire in the center. Under the harsh light of his desk lamp, the book looked even more ancient. The leather was cracked and peeling. The pages were yellowed and uneven, looking more like parchment than paper. And that clover, 5 leaves. In the language of flowers, Izuku whispered, recalling a trivia fact from one of his notebooks. The 4th leaf represents good luck. But a 5th? He didn't know. His hand hovered over the cover. He remembered the voice he had heard in the street. The laughter. Grab it. He took a deep breath and flipped the cover open. Whoosh. There was no sound of wind, but the papers on his desk flew off as if caught in a gale. The room went dark. The lamp didn't flicker, the light was simply swallowed. Izuku tried to stand up, but he couldn't move. He wasn't in his chair anymore. He wasn't in his room. He was falling. He tumbled through a gray, viscous mist. It wasn't cold, it wasn't hot. It was the temperature of nothingness. He flailed his limbs, trying to scream, but no sound came out. Then, he hit the ground. It wasn't a hard impact. It was like landing on a pile of ash. Izuku coughed, sitting up. He looked around. He was in a vast, desolate landscape. The ground was covered in gray dust and littered with what looked like broken weapons, swords, spears, axes, all rusted and black. The sky was a swirling vortex of charcoal clouds. Welcome to the VIP lounge. Sorry about the mess, the cleaning lady quit a few centuries ago. Izuku scrambled back, kicking up clouds of ash. Floating a few feet above the ground was a silhouette. It was small, roughly the size of a child, but its proportions were wrong. It had a tail that twitched lazily. 2 curved horns protruded from its head. Bat-like wings beat slowly against the dead air. As the figure drifted closer, the features became clear. Pale skin, black markings running down its face, and a mouth full of jagged, predatory teeth. It wore tattered clothing that looked as old as the grimoire itself. You! Izuku squeaked. You're the thing from the street. The thing? The creature scoffed, crossing its arms. Rude. I have a name. It's Liba. And you must be the new landlord. Liba floated closer, circling Izuku like a shark inspecting a shipwreck. He poked Izuku's forehead with a clawed finger. Izuku Midoriya. Quirkless. Weak. Timid. A crybaby. And apparently, suicidal enough to run at a sludge monster with a backpack. Liba shook his head. I really scraped the bottom of the barrel this time. Where are we? Izuku asked, his analytical mind trying to override his fear. Is this a mental projection? A hallucination caused by trauma? Or is this a vestige world inside a quirk factor? Blah blah blah, Liba mocked, making a talking motion with his hand. You mutter even in your soul? Listen, kid. This isn't a quirk. I'm not a quirk. This book isn't a quirk. Liba landed on the hilt of a massive sword sticking out of the ground, the same sword Izuku had wielded earlier. This is a grimoire, Liba explained. And I am a devil. A devil with no magic, trapped in a book, in a world full of people obsessed with their little genetic superpowers. A devil? Izuku stared. Like demons? Hell? Close enough, Liba shrugged. But don't worry about the theology. Here's the reality. You and I are the same. Liba's expression shifted. The mockery vanished, replaced by a cold, hard resentment. I was born without magic in a world where magic was everything. You were born without a quirk in a world where quirks are everything. We are the defects. The glitches, the trash that society wants to throw away. Izuku looked down at his hands. The defects. I watched you, Liba said softly. I've been watching through the cracks for a while. Watching you get beaten up. Watching you cry. Watching you worship that blonde oaf who told you to give up. Izuku flinched. All Might, he came back. He told me I could be a hero, after you did the work. Liba snapped, baring his teeth. After you moved. He only believed in you because you showed him something he couldn't ignore. But the rest of them? That explosion boy. The teachers? They looked at you and see zero. Liba pushed off the sword and floated face to face with Izuku. I have power, Izuku. I have a power that can tear their precious society down to its studs. My power is anti-magic. Or, in this world's terms, anti-quirk. Izuku's eyes widened. Anti-quirk? That sword, Liba pointed. It doesn't just cut. It severs the connection between the body and the power. Emitters, transformation types. Against that blade, they're just normal people. Against that blade, the playing field is leveled. Actually, no. Against that blade, you have the advantage. Liba held out a hand. It was clawed black and dangerous. You want to be a hero? You want to save people? Fine. I don't care about saving people. I just want to prove that a useless defect can stand on top of their heads. But I can't leave the book. I need a body. I need a conduit. The devil grinned. Make a deal with me, Izuku Midoriya. I'll give you my anti-quirk energy. I'll let you wield the swords. Together, we'll be the greatest heroes, or the greatest monsters, this world has ever seen. We'll show them what nothing can do. Izuku looked at the hand. A deal with the devil. It sounded like the setup for a horror movie. It sounded dangerous, but he remembered the feeling of the sword in his hand. The weight. The moment the sludge dissolved. The moment he wasn't helpless. I don't want to destroy society, Izuku said firmly. I want to save it. I want to save everyone. Even the people who mocked me. Liba raised an eyebrow. You're a masochist. Maybe. Izuku stood up. The ash swirled around his ankles. But if your power can save people, if it can stop villains like that sludge guy, then I'll take it. But I'm not your puppet. We're partners, or nothing. Liba stared at him for a long moment. Then, a dark chuckle bubbled up from his throat. Partners. I like that. Better than master or slave. All right, partner. Liba's hand ignited with black and red energy. But here's the catch, Liba said. My power is heavy. You felt it today. You barely lifted the Demon Slayer's sword. If you try to channel my full power now, your limbs will explode. You're weak. Your body is a twig. I know, Izuku admitted. So, the deal is this, Liba declared. You have 10 months until the entrance exam for that hero school, right? In those 10 months, you are going to rebuild this pathetic body from the ground up. You're going to suffer. You're going to bleed. You're going to wish you were dead. Because if you don't, my sword will crush you before you even swing it. Izuku gripped his own shirt over his heart. I'll do it. Whatever it takes. Liba grasped Izuku's hand. The cold static flared into a raging inferno of black energy. Then let's get to work, you damn nerd. Dagoba Municipal Beach Park. 2 days later, the sun was barely cresting the horizon, painting the sky in hues of bruised purple and orange. The seagulls were crying, unaware that their scavenging grounds were about to become a torture chamber. Izuku stood at the top of the stairs overlooking the beach. Or rather, the landfill. Mountains of trash, tires, appliances, driftwood, unrecognizable scrap metal, stretched as far as the eye could see. This, a booming voice announced, is your first step. All Might stood beside him, not in his hero form, but in his deflated, skeletal state. He wore a baggy tracksuit that hung off his frame like a tarp. Dagoba Beach, All Might explained. Currents bring all the trash from the ocean here. People started illegal dumping, and now, well, it's a mess. But for you, it's a gym. All Might pulled out a sheet of paper. I have designed the aim to pass, American Dream Plan. It adjusts your sleep, diet, and exercise to build your body safely but rapidly. Izuku took the paper. It was detailed. Incredibly detailed. It accounted for every calorie. This is amazing, All Might. Izuku beamed. With this I can. Boring. The voice echoed in Izuku's head. He flinched. Young Midoriya? All Might asked. Are you okay? Yes, Izuku said, tapping the side of his head. Just a headache. Hey, Twig, Liba's voice grated against his skull. Ask the skeleton man something for me. Ask him if this plan is designed to make you strong enough to throw a punch, or strong enough to swing a slab of iron that weighs as much as a motorcycle. Izuku paused. He looked at All Might. All Might? This plan, is it designed for general fitness? It's designed to build a vessel capable of holding power. All Might said, striking a pose, which looked painful. Why? Because... Izuku looked at the grimoire, which he now carried in a specialized pouch at his hip. The sword. It was really heavy. I don't think general fitness is going to cut it. I think I need Extreme strength. All Might blinked. He remembered the police struggling to move the sword. You have a point. That weapon is an anomaly. If your fighting style relies on it, you need core strength and upper body torque far exceeding the average hero. Tell him you want the demon plan, Liba cackled. Push-ups until your arms fall off. Sit-ups until you vomit. Then drink some Meguro leaf juice. What is Meguro leaf juice? Izuku whispered. What was that? Nothing. Izuku stood up straighter. All Might, I want to double it. No, triple it. I don't just want to clear a small section. I want to clear the whole beach. All Might's eyes widened. The whole beach? In 10 months? Young Midoriya, that could destroy your body if you aren't careful. I have to. Izuku clenched his fists. I'm starting from 0. No, I'm starting from negative. If I want to stand on the same stage as everyone else, I have to do 10 times what they do. I have to be the hardest worker in the room, or I'll just be a liability. All Might looked at the boy. The fire in his eyes was different now. It wasn't just hope, it was hunger. Very well. All Might buffed up into his muscular form for a split second, flashing a blinding grin. I like that spirit. But don't come crying to me when you can't lift your arms to brush your teeth. I won't. Good, Liba whispered. Now start running. If you stop before you cough blood, I'm taking over your body and making you do burpees in traffic. The Montage of Misery. Month 1. The Awakening of Pain. Izuku quickly learned that hell was not a place of fire and brimstone. It was a sandy beach filled with rusty refrigerators. The first week was agony. Every muscle fiber in his body tore and rebuilt itself. Liba was a merciless drill sergeant in his head. When All Might said 10 more reps, Liba screamed. 50 more! Izuku was dragging a massive truck tire through the soft sand, a rope tied around his waist. Lower your hips. Liba barked. Drive with your legs. You're pulling with your back, you idiot. Do you want a herniated disc at 15? I'm trying. Izuku gasped, sweat stinging his eyes. All Might sat on top of the tire, reading a newspaper. Looking good, young Midoriya. Keep that pace, he says, keep pace. Izuku wheezed. He's heavier than he looks, Liba muttered. Hey, try to channel a little bit of the black stuff. Just a drop. Izuku focused. He imagined the black energy from the mindscape. He felt a trickle of cold power flow into his legs. For a second, the tire felt lighter. He surged forward. Oh? All Might looked over his newspaper. A burst of energy? Good. As soon as the energy faded, the exhaustion hit Izuku like a hammer, and he face-planted into the sand. Month 3, the diet. Eat it. Mom, this is green sludge. Inko smiled nervously. It's a high-protein kale, spinach, and unidentifiable root vegetable smoothie. All Might sent the recipe. He said it's vital for explosive muscle density. Izuku looked at the glass. It bubbled. Drink it, Liba commanded. It looks like the blood of my enemies. It'll put hair on your chest. Izuku chugged it. He gagged. He drank the rest. At school, the change was subtle but noticeable. Izuku didn't hunch as much. His uniform felt tighter around the shoulders. When Bakugo bumped into him in the hallway, Izuku didn't stumble. He just took the impact and kept walking. Bakugo stopped, staring at Izuku's back with narrowing eyes. The nerd, he's not flinching. Month 5, the summoning. It was raining. The beach was a mud pit. All right, All Might shouted over the wind. Try to bring it out. Controlled manifestation. Izuku stood atop a pile of scrap metal. He closed his eyes. He reached into the void inside him. He didn't reach for the book physically. He reached for the connection. Grimoire. The book materialized at his hip, floating in a dark aura. Now the sword, Liba guided. Don't yank it out. Call it. Izuku held out his hand. Demon Slayer's sword. The handle protruded from the book. Izuku gripped it. He pulled. The weight was still immense, but he didn't buckle. His arms, now defined with lean, corded muscle, held the blade steady. Ha! Izuku swung. He didn't hit anything, but the air pressure from the swing blew a hole in the rain, creating a momentary dry zone in front of him. Impressive! All Might clapped. You're handling the weight much better. But you're stiff. You're fighting the weapon. He's right, Liba grumbled. You're swinging it like a baseball bat. It's a sword. It has an edge. Use the momentum. Let the weight work for you, not against you. Month 8, the academic hurdle. Physical training was only half the battle. Yui required brains. Izuku sat in class, muttering rapidly as he solved advanced calculus problems. Why do we need to know this? Liba complained. I can divide things just fine. I divide heads from bodies. Physics is important for trajectory calculations, Izuku whispered back, ignoring the weird looks from his classmates. If I jump with the sword, I need to know the arc of descent. Nerd, shut up. Did you say something, Midoriya? The teacher asked. No, sir. Just calculating. Month 10, the final day. The morning of the entrance exam arrived. All Might pulled up to the beach in his truck. He stepped out and dropped his coffee. The beach was gone. In its place was a pristine stretch of golden sand, sparkling under the morning sun. The ocean waves lapped gently against the shore, no longer obstructed by tires and trash. The mountains of garbage were gone, and in the center of the beach, atop the very last pile of trash, a massive, rusted pickup truck chassis and a pile of refrigerators, stood Izuku Midoriya. He was shirtless. He was screaming. The boy who had been a twig 10 months ago was gone. In his place was a sculpted athlete. His back muscles rippled like steel cables. His abs were defined. Scars from cuts and scrapes littered his arms, badges of honor from the jagged metal he had hauled. He held the grimoire in his left hand. Last one! Izuku roared. He threw the grimoire into the air. It opened. The hilt of the demon slayer appeared. Izuku jumped. He caught the sword in midair. He spun, his body a tight coil of kinetic energy. Put everything into it. Liba roared in his mind. No quirks. Just us. Pure, raw power. Smash. Izuku brought the flat of the giant sword down on the truck chassis. Crunch. It wasn't a cut. It was an impact event. The truck chassis crumpled like a soda can. The refrigerators shattered. The force of the blow transmitted through the trash pile, flattening it into a disk of compressed metal and creating a shockwave that kicked up a cloud of sand 20 feet high. Izuku landed on the scrap heap, panting heavily. Steam rose from his skin. He stood up, resting the massive sword on his shoulder as if it were a baseball bat. All Might stood stunned. Oh my goodness! Izuku looked down. His eyes were bright green, fierce and alive. He smiled, not the timid smile of Deku, but a grin that bordered on feral. I did it, All Might, Izuku shouted. I cleared it all. All Might rushed over, tripping over his own feet in excitement. He transformed into his muscle form in a puff of smoke. You didn't just clear it. You annihilated it. All Might laughed, slapping Izuku on the back, and nearly knocking him over, though Izuku braced himself and stayed standing. I asked you to be realistic, and you exceeded reality. You truly are a monster, young man. A monster of hard work. All Might reached into his pocket. He pulled out a strand of his blonde hair. Now, All Might said solemnly, you have proven yourself worthy. The vessel is ready. Swallow this, and inherit my power. Izuku stared at the hair. Don't do it, Liba warned. We don't need his power. We have our own. Izuku looked at All Might. All Might. He paused. He thought about the sword. He thought about the anti-magic. He thought about how the two powers might interact. Can I wait? All Might blinked, almost dropping the hair. Wait, I want to pass the exam with this. Izuku patted the demon slayer's sword, which then dissipated into black mist back into the book. I want to prove that I can be a hero with the power I have now, with the power of a defect. If I take one for all now, I feel like I'd be cheating on the progress I made. He looked at his hands. And, Liba, the thing in the book, he says his power might not mix well with others yet. I need to master this first. All Might stared at him, dumbfounded. Someone refusing one for all? Even temporarily? Then, the hero threw his head back and laughed. It was a laugh of pure relief and joy, refusing the easy path to the very end. You really are something else, Izuku Midoriya. Very well. Keep the hair as a rain check. Go to that exam. Show them the power of the black clover. Izuku bowed deeply. Thank you, All Might. He grabbed his shirt and his bag. He had to run. The exam started in an hour. Yue High School. The gates. The massive glass structure of Yue loomed over the students. It was the pearly gates of heroism. Izuku walked through the crowd. He felt different. He walked with a center of gravity that was grounded. He didn't flinch at the noise. Out of my way, Deku! Bakugo marched past him, shoving his shoulder. In the past, Izuku would have spun out, apologized, and cowered. This time, Izuku's core engaged. He didn't budge. Bakugo, expecting no resistance, actually stumbled slightly from the impact of hitting Izuku's solid shoulder. Bakugo stopped. He turned around slowly, his face twitching. You! Bakugo stared at Izuku's neck, seeing the thick muscle that wasn't there a year ago. You didn't die. Nope, Izuku said calmly, adjusting his backpack strap. I didn't. You think lifting some trash makes you a hero? Bakugo sneered, small explosions popping in his hands. You're still quirkless. You're bringing a knife to a nuke fight. It's not a knife, Kaken, Izuku said, a small, confident smile playing on his lips. He tapped the pouch at his hip where the grimoire rested. It's a fly swatter. And I'm here to swat some bugs. He turned and walked away, leaving Bakugo standing there, confused and seething. Nice line, Liba commented. A bit cheesy, but I'll give it a 6 out of 10. I thought it was cool, Izuku muttered. He looked up at the main building. The written exam was first. He wasn't worried about that. He had been studying heroics his whole life. But the practical exam. Robots, Izuku whispered. Bring them on. He stepped through the gates, the 5-leaf clover on his hip pulsing faintly, ready for war. The written exam was a battlefield of silence. The only sounds in the vast lecture hall were the scratching of pencils, the ticking of the clock, and the occasional nervous cough. For most students, this was the first hurdle, a wall of academic rigor designed to weed out those who had brawn but no brains. For Izuku Midoriya, it was a warm-up. He sat hunched over his desk, his eyes darting across the page. Calculus, hero law history, quirk theory, tactical analysis. These were the things that had filled the lonely hours of his childhood. While other kids were practicing their fire breathing or telekinesis in the backyard, Izuku was in his room, dissecting the geopolitical ramifications of the quirk singularity theory. Question 42. Analyze the logistical failure of the Kamino Ward relief effort during the typhoon of 21XX. Izuku's pencil moved in a blur. Lack of aquatic quirk coordination, over-reliance on aerial transport which was grounded due to wind shear, failure to establish a localized quirk usage permit zone. Too easy, Liba's voice drawled in the back of his mind. This is just memorization. Where's the carnage? Where's the blood? Quiet, Liba, Izuku thought, not breaking his rhythm. Focus. If I fail this, I don't get to use the sword. Boring. I'm taking a nap. Wake me up when we get to hit something. Izuku finished the exam with 10 minutes to spare. He placed his pencil down, flexed his hand, which was calloused and scarred from months of dragging steel through sand, and exhaled. He looked around. To his left, a boy with blonde hair and a black lightning bolt streak was chewing on his pen cap, looking distressed. To his right, Bakugo was aggressively circling answers, looking like he wanted to murder the paper. Izuku felt a strange sense of calm. The academic part was the control variable. He knew who he was on paper. It was the next part, the practical, that was the variable of chaos, the orientation. Everybody say hey. Present Mick's voice hit the auditorium like a sonic boom. The pro-hero stood on the stage, vibrating with energy, his directional speaker hair bristling. Hey! Izuku whispered enthusiastically. Silence, listeners. Mike continued, ignoring the dead air from the rest of the nervous crowd. Welcome to the UA practical exam. Are you ready to rock? As President Mike launched into the explanation of the urban mock battles, Izuku's hand flew across his notebook, sketching the robot types. 3 types of villain bots, Mike explained, the screen behind him flashing with 8-bit graphics. 1-pointer, 2-pointer, and 3-pointer. The difficulty scales with the points. Your goal? Rack up a high score by shredding these metal menaces. No anti-hero behavior allowed. Excuse me. May I ask a question? A hand shot up in the middle of the auditorium. A tall boy with glasses and the posture of a suspension bridge stood up. The spotlight swung to him. Proceed, listener. On the printout, there are 4 types of villains listed. The boy pointed at his pamphlet with rigid precision. If this is a printing error, then UA, the most prestigious school in Japan, should be ashamed. We are here to be molded into exemplary heroes. He spun around, pointing a finger directly at Izuku. And you? The one with the curly hair. Izuku froze. And me? You've been muttering this entire time. It's distracting. If you're here on a sightseeing trip, then you should leave immediately. The auditorium rippled with hushed giggles. Izuku felt the heat rise in his cheeks. Old habits died hard. The shame of being singled out was a reflex. He's annoying, Liba whispered. Let's bite him. No biting, Izuku thought. Izuku stood up. The laughter died down slightly. He didn't hunch his shoulders. He didn't look at his feet. He looked the tall boy in the eye. I apologize for the noise, Izuku said, his voice steady, projecting more than he ever had in middle school. I was memorizing the engagement rules to ensure safety. But you're right. I'll be quieter. He sat down. The tall boy blinked, seemingly taken aback that Izuku hadn't crumbled or snapped back aggressively. He adjusted his glasses. I see. Thank you. Okay. Settle down. President Mike waved his hands. Excellent question, examinee 7111. The 4th robot is the zero-pointer. Think of it like a stage hazard in a video game. It's huge, it's mean, and it's worth 0 points. If you see it, run away. It's not worth the HP loss. Run away, Izuku muttered, this time silently. Got it. Battle Center B. The bus ride to the testing ground was a pressure cooker of tension. Izuku stood outside the massive gates of Battle Center B, staring up at the towering concrete walls. It looked like a fortress. He was wearing a simple green tracksuit he had bought at a discount store, reinforced with some elbow and knee pads. Around his waist was a heavy leather belt with a specially designed magnetic clamp pouch on the left hip. Inside that pouch rested the 5-leaf grimoire. He looked around. The crowd was a kaleidoscope of mutations and support gear. There was a guy with 6 arms, a girl whose skin was pink and acid-washed, and a boy with engines in his legs, the guy from the auditorium. Izuku took a deep breath. This is it. 10 months of hell. The beach. The trash. The sludge. It all comes down to the next 10 minutes. He spotted a familiar face near the front. The nice girl he had saved from tripping at the entrance gate earlier that morning. She looked nervous, clutching her chest. I should wish her luck, Izuku thought. It's the hero thing to do. He took a step forward. A hand chopped the air in front of him. You again? It was the glasses guy. Tenya Ida? She appears to be trying to focus, Ida said sternly. Are you planning to distract her with more muttering? And furthermore, Ida pointed to the pouch on Izuku's hip. That book. And the equipment you're hiding. Is that a sanctioned support item? Those are usually only allowed for students who petition ahead of time. Izuku looked down at the grimoire. It's registered, he said simply. Technically it's classified under biolinked anomaly, but the board approved it. Biolinked? Ida frowned. You mean it's part of your quirk? Something like that, Izuku lied. It was easier than explaining he was haunting himself. And start. President Mick's voice screamed from the top of a tower. The students jumped, confused. There was no countdown, but Izuku didn't wait. Start means start, Liba hissed. Go! Izuku's calves, dense with muscle woven from months of dragging truck tires through sand, fired like pistons. He exploded off the line. Zoom! While the other students were still processing the lack of a countdown, Izuku was already a blur of green, sprinting through the open gate. What are you waiting for? Mike yelled. There are no countdowns in real battles. Run! Follow that kid! The crowd surged forward, a stampede of quirks, but Izuku already had a lead. The urban zone. The mock city was impressive. Full-scale buildings, paved roads, streetlights. It was a perfect arena. Izuku turned a corner and skidded to a halt. Blocking the street was a machine. It was a one-pointer, a swift, wheeled drone with a singular red eye and target-locking guns. Target acquired, the robot beeped. It lunged, closing the distance with surprising speed. Izuku's hand dropped to his hip. Grimoire. The book floated out of the pouch, hovering in the air surrounded by a black and red aura. It flipped open rapidly. Demon Slayer's sword. Izuku shouted. He gripped the rusted handle protruding from the page and heaved. The massive slab of black iron tore free from the book. It was huge, nearly 6 feet long and a foot wide. To any observer, it looked impossibly heavy for a boy of his size. And it was heavy. But Izuku wasn't the boy from 10 months ago. The robot raised a mechanical arm to strike. Izuku didn't use finesse. He used torque. He planted his feet, twisted his hips, and swung the sword like a battering ram. Clang! The sound was sickeningly loud. The blade, dull and thick, slammed into the side of the robot's chassis. The metal of the robot crumpled inward. The force of the swing lifted the machine off its wheels and sent it flying into a brick wall. The robot twitched, sparked, and went dead. 1 point, Liba counted. Sloppy swing. You over-rotated. It worked, didn't it? Izuku panted, hefting the sword onto his shoulder. The weight dug in, grounding him. Hey! Look at that guy! 2 other examinees ran past, stopping to stare at the wreckage. Did he just hit it with a giant piece of metal? Is that a strength quirk? That sword must weigh a ton. Izuku ignored them. He started running again, the sword dragging behind him, carving a groove into the pavement. Sparks flew from the friction. Incoming, left side! Liba warned. Izuku ducked. A laser beam singed the air where his head had been. A 2-pointer. This one was shaped like a scorpion, its tail glowing with blue energy. Laser cutters, Izuku muttered. If that hits me, I'm toast. The tail charged up again. Don't dodge, Liba grinned. Test the merchandise. Izuku gritted his teeth. He stepped toward the robot. The laser fired. A concentrated beam of high-heat energy. Izuku swung the Demon Slayer upward in a vertical arc. The black blade met the blue laser. There was no reflection. No refraction. The moment the energy touched the rusted iron, it simply ceased to exist. The sword erased the attack, carving a path of safety through the beam. Izuku followed through, the momentum carrying the sword down onto the scorpion's head. Crunch! The robot flattened like a stepped-on soda can. Energy nullification confirmed. Izuku breathed, adrenaline flooding his system. It works on the synthetic quirk energy too. Of course it does, Liba scoffed. Energy is energy. Magic quirks, batteries, if it's unnatural, weed it. Izuku was in the zone now. He ran through the streets, a whirlwind of physical destruction. A 3-pointer appeared, a massive track tank. It fired a net made of electrified energy. Izuku slashed horizontally, dissolving the net into sparks, then shoulder-checked the robot, knocking it off balance before driving the pommel of the sword into its sensor array. 6 points, 10 points, 25 points. His muscles burned. His lungs heaved. Swinging the sword was exhausting work. He wasn't shooting lasers from his navel or gliding on engines. Every point he earned was paid for in sweat and kinetic force. He turned a corner and saw the boy with the naval laser, Aoyama, struggling. A 2-pointer had cornered him. Merci, but no thank you. Aoyama fired a laser, but he was clutching his stomach, clearly over his limit. Izuku didn't think. He vaulted off a parked car, soaring into the air. He raised the sword high. Smash! He came down like a meteor. The sword crushed the robot into scrap metal. Aoyama blinked, staring at Izuku. Très bien. But isn't that heavy? Very. Izuku yelled, already taking off. 32 points. The observation room. In a dark room lined with screens, the faculty of UA watched the chaos unfold. This year's batch looks promising, Midnight purred, tapping her chin. Lots of flashy quirks. We have a good range of emitters, Snipe noted. And that boy with the engines is solid. Good leadership qualities. But a small creature, Principal Nizu said, sipping tea, there is an anomaly. He pointed a paw at one of the screens. It showed Izuku. He was surrounded by 3 robots. He wasn't using fire or ice. He was spinning, the massive black sword acting as a shield and a bludgeon. He moved with a feral intensity, his movements unrefined but devastatingly effective. Examine 2234, Nisa said. Izuku Midoriya. Registered quirk, none. None? Midnight leaned forward. Then how is he swinging that thing? Is it a support item? A cursed object, according to his paperwork, All Might said from the back of the room. He was in his skinny form, leaning against the wall. He has no quirk factor. His strength is purely physical. The book supplies the weapon. Physical strength? Cementos raised a rocky eyebrow. To swing a blade of that mass with such speed, his muscle density must be extraordinary for a teenager. He fights like a barbarian, Vlad King grunted, though he sounded impressed. No flash. No hesitation. He just breaks them. He's finding the weak points, Power Loader noted. Look! He doesn't cut through the thickest armor. He targets joints, sensors, and power cores. And did you see that? The laser just vanished. Interesting, Nisa mused. But combat ability is only one metric. A hero must also possess the heart to save. Nisa's hand hovered over a large red button. Let's see how they handle true despair. He pressed the button. The urban zone. The ground shook. It started as a vibration in the soles of Izuku's shoes. Then, the pebbles on the road started to dance. Then, the windows of the fake buildings shattered. Boom! A shadow fell over the city. Izuku looked up. And up. And up. Towering over the skyscrapers was a machine of nightmares. The zero-pointer. It was larger than Godzilla, a colossal green dreadnought with treads the size of houses. Its hand smashed into a building, sending tons of concrete raining down onto the street. What is that? The examinees froze. The sheer scale of the thing triggered a primal fear response. That's the gimmick? It's huge. Run! It's not worth any points. The crowd broke. It was a rout. Students scrambled over each other to get away from the path of the Titan. Izuku stood frozen. The dust washed over him. That's too big, Liba said, his voice unusually serious. Even with the sword, we can't stop that. We can't cut a mountain. Run, Izuku told himself. I have enough points. I have to pass. He turned to flee. Oh wow! A cry for help. Faint buried under the rumble of the treads. Izuku stopped. He looked back. Through the dust, he saw her. The nice girl, Uraraka. She was on the ground, her leg trapped under a massive slab of concrete debris. She was struggling, her face pale with pain. The zero-pointer was approaching. Its massive treads were churning up the asphalt, grinding everything in its path to dust. It was maybe 50 meters away. She's stuck, Izuku whispered. The other students were running away. Even Ida, who had preached about heroism, was sprinting for safety, though he did look back. Izuku, Liba warned. If you go back, you might die. That thing weighs thousands of tons. Izuku looked at the robot. He looked at the girl. His body moved. He didn't run away. He ran toward the monster. Hey! A student yelled. Where are you going? You'll get crushed. Izuku didn't hear them. His world narrowed down to the girl and the machine. He reached Uraraka. He jammed the tip of the Demon Slayer's sword under the concrete slab. HNNNGH. He leveraged the sword, using it as a crowbar. His muscles bulged, veins popping in his neck. Get out! He lifted the slab just enough. Uraraka gasped and pulled her leg free. It looked bad, swollen and bruised. Can you run? Izuku yelled over the roar of the robot. I think it's broken, she cried, clutching her ankle. The shadow of the robot engulfed them. It raised a fist, preparing to smash the street flat. We can't outrun the impact radius, Liba analyzed instantly. If that fist hits the ground, the shockwave kills you both. Izuku looked up at the descending doom. Liba, Izuku said, his voice terrifyingly calm. Can we cut it? No. It's too thick. Can we kill it? Liba paused. Then, a wicked grin spread across the mental image of the devil. It runs on electricity. Synthetic quirk batteries. If you can get to the brain. The head. Izuku looked at the summit of the metal mountain. Hold on to this. Izuku shoved the grimoire into Uraraka's hands. What? She stammered. Don't let go. Izuku turned to the robot. He didn't have one for all. He couldn't jump over the building. He was just a boy with a sword, but the robot had texture. Pipes, vents, rivets. Izuku gripped the demon slayer with his right hand. Black mode, grip, Liba whispered. Black anti-energy coated Izuku's left hand and his feet. It wasn't a transformation, just a focused application of the anti-magic to create friction, a sticky, Velcro-like grip that adhered to the unnatural energy leaking from the robot's seams. Izuku sprinted. He ran at the robot's tread. He jumped, his black-coated hand slamming into the metal. He stuck. He began to climb. It was madness. To the students watching below, it looked like a flea scaling a tank. Izuku scrambled up the side of the leg, using the sword as an ice pick, stabbing it into vents to hoist himself up. Slam! The robot's fist hit the ground behind him, missing Uraraka because she had crawled behind a barrier, but the shockwave nearly shook Izuku loose. Don't let go! Izuku gritted his teeth. He was 50 feet up. 100. His lungs burned. His fingers bled. Faster! Liba screamed. It's charging a laser! The zero-pointer's single eye began to glow a menacing red. It was targeting the students fleeing at the gate. Izuku vaulted over the shoulder joint. He was on the neck now. He could see the head, a massive dome of sensors and armor. Where is the core? Izuku yelled. The neck joint. There's a cluster of cables. Izuku ran along the collar of the Titan. The wind whipped his hair. He was higher than the fake buildings. The robot sensed him. Small defensive turrets swiveled on its shoulder. Ignore them! Izuku leaped. He was airborne, suspended in the sky against the backdrop of the sun. He raised the demon slayer's sword with both hands. This ends here. He didn't slash. He plunged. He drove the sword straight down into the seam where the head met the neck. K-chunk. The blade sank deep, piercing through the armor plating and severing the thick bundle of power conduits underneath. The anti-quirk energy flooded the system. It wasn't an explosion. It was a blackout. The red glow in the robot's eye died instantly. The hum of the massive engines cut out, replaced by the groaning of settling metal. The defensive turrets went limp. The zero-pointer, caught mid-step, froze. Then, slowly, it began to tilt backward. Izuku wrenched the sword free. Whoa! Gravity took over. Izuku fell. He was falling from the height of a 10-story building. We don't have a flight spell, genius! Liba panicked. This is going to hurt. I know! Izuku flailed. He tried to angle his body. Aim for the robot's shoulder? No, too hard. The debris pile? The ground was rushing up fast. Slap. Suddenly, the wind stopped whistling in his ears. His stomach lurched. He stopped falling and hung suspended in the air, inches from the pavement. Release! He dropped the last 3 inches, landing on his face. Oof! Izuku rolled over, groaning. He looked up. Uraraka was there, leaning over him. Her fingers were pressed together. She looked green, like she was about to vomit. You saved me, she gasped, then turned her head and retched dryly. Rainbow sparkles floated away. Izuku lay there, staring at the sky. The massive carcass of the zero-pointer loomed over them, a monument to the impossible. Time's up! Present Mix Siren wailed. The exam was over. The aftermath. Silence descended on the battle center. Slowly, the other students crept back from their hiding spots. They gathered around the fallen giant, their eyes wide. Did you see that? He killed it. He didn't just smash it, he shut it off. Who is that guy? Is he All Might's secret kid or something? Ida stood in the crowd, his glasses askew. He looked at the boy lying on the ground, covered in grease, dust, and blood, clutching a sword that looked like it belonged in a museum of torture devices. He jumped, Ida whispered. To save her. While I ran. Ida clenched his fists, shame burning in his chest. Recovery girl arrived shortly after, handing out gummies and healing the worst of the injuries. She tooted over Izuku's exhausted state. Overexertion, she diagnosed. Complete muscle fatigue. And some nasty friction burns. But you're alive. She kissed his forehead. Izuku felt his stamina drain further, but the pain subsided. He sat up, looking for his grimoire. Uraraka was holding it. She handed it back to him with trembling hands. "Thank you," she said softly. "For saving me. And for trusting me with this." She looked at the book. The 5-leaf clover seemed to pulse. "It's scary," she admitted. "But it saved my life." Izuku took the book. He felt Liba's presence, smug and satisfied. "We put on a good show, partner." "Yeah," Izuku whispered. "But I didn't get any points for that one." He looked at the scoreboard in his mind. Combat points, 45, approximate. Is that enough? He didn't know. 1 week later, the Midoriya household was a quiet zone. Izuku had spent the week staring at his phone, lifting dumbbells absent-mindedly, and waiting. He had replayed the exam in his head 1,000 times. He had destroyed plenty of robots, sure. But had he done enough? Other students had flashy quirks. They had destroyed dozens, and he had wasted the last 5 minutes on a 0-point enemy. Maybe I failed, he thought, lying on his bed. Maybe pure strength isn't enough. "Stop whining," Liba said. "You decimated a skyscraper with a sword. If they don't take you, we'll start our own school. With blackjack and hookers." "Liba, please." "Izuku! It's here!" His mother's voice shrieked from the hallway. Izuku scrambled off his bed. He ran to the living room. Inko was holding a white envelope with the Yui wax seal. She looked like she was holding a bomb. Izuku took it. His hands shook. I'll go to my room." He sat at his desk. He tore the envelope open. A metal disc fell out. It clattered onto the desk. A hologram projected into the air. "I am here as a projection." All Might filled the room, his signature costume bright and colorful. "All Might?" Izuku gasped. "Young Midoriya." All Might boomed. "You have been waiting. And I am here to deliver the results. But first, a surprise. I will be teaching at UA this year." Izuku's jaw dropped. "Now, to the scores." All Might pulled out a card. "You performed admirably in the written exam. A solid passing grade. But the practical, the practical." A video clip played. It showed Izuku smashing the 1-pointer. Then the scorpion. Then the tank. "You acquired 48 combat points," All Might announced. "A respectable score. Enough to pass on its own." Izuku slumped in relief. "I passed. But wait." All Might leaned into the camera. "That is not the whole story. The hero course is not just about fighting villains. It is about saving hearts." Another clip played. It was Uraraka. She was in the negotiation room at UA. "Please," she was saying to present Mike. "Can I give him some of my points? He saved me. He jumped on that giant robot to save me. I would have been crushed if he hadn't, so please." Izuku's eyes watered. "She tried to give me points?" "You didn't need her points, young Midoriya," All Might declared. "Because actions that inspire others, actions of self-sacrifice, they are the essence of a hero." A scoreboard appeared. Izuku Midoriya, villain points, 48, rescue points, 60, total, 108. 60? Izuku screamed. "Rescue points!" All Might shouted. "Given by a panel of judges. You risked your life against an unbeatable enemy to save a comrade. That is the spirit of UA." All Might extended a hand toward the camera. "Izuku Midoriya. You, the boy with no quirk, but the heart of a giant. You, and your strange, dark power." The image of All Might seemed to look directly into Izuku's soul. "Come. This is your hero academia." The hologram faded. Izuku sat there in the silence. He looked at the grimoire on his desk. He looked at his scarred hands. "We did it, Liba," he whispered. "Of course we did," the devil replied. "Now, get some sleep. The real work starts tomorrow." Izuku smiled, tears streaming down his face, and clenched his fist. The path was open. The ashless boy was going to be a hero. The uniform of UA High School was a masterpiece of tailoring. The gray blazer with the dark green stripes felt substantial, a fabric woven from prestige and expectation. For Izuku Midoriya, buttoning it up that morning felt less like getting dressed for school and more like donning a suit of armor. He stood in front of his bathroom mirror, adjusting the red tie. He looked different. The boy in the reflection wasn't the trembling, hollow-cheeked child of a year ago. His neck was thicker, his shoulders broader. The scarring on his hands, faint, silvery lines from dragging rusted steel across jagged trash, spoke of a price paid in full. At his hip, secured by a heavy-duty leather belt he had modified himself, rested the grimoire. It was quiet this morning. The five-leaf clover seemed to absorb the bathroom light, a black void against the clean tile. "You look like a stiff," Liba's voice echoed in his head. The devil sounded like he was just waking up. "Loosen the tie. You look like you're going to a funeral." "It's a uniform, Liba." "It's supposed to be neat," Izuku whispered back, grabbing his yellow backpack. "Whatever. Just don't trip." Izuku left the apartment with a shout of "I'm leaving." To his mother. Inko Midoriya was weeping tears of joy in the kitchen, dehydrating herself faster than she could drink her morning tea. The walk to the station was a surreal experience. People looked at the uniform. Some whispered. Yui's students were minor celebrities just by association. Izuku kept his head high, a new habit he was still cementing. He wasn't arrogant, he would never be arrogant, but he wasn't apologizing for his existence anymore. When he reached the massive glass gates of UA, he paused. This was the threshold. "Midoriya!" He turned to see Tenya Ida marching toward him, his arms chopping the air with robotic precision. "Good morning," Ida announced, stopping exactly 3 feet away. "I am glad to see you arrived punctually. The train schedule was slightly delayed, so I ran the last 3 stations to ensure I was not late." "Good morning, Ida," Izuku smiled. "You're energetic." "I have been reflecting on the entrance exam." Ida adjusted his glasses. "I misjudged you completely. I thought you were a disruptor, but you discerned the true nature of the test, the rescue points, while I was blinded by the superficial objective. I, Tenya Ida, acknowledge you as a superior candidate." "Oh no, I didn't discern anything." Izuku waved his hands. "My body just moved. Even more impressive." Ida nodded solemnly. "Instinctual heroism. Truly, UA is the place for the elite." "Hey! Deku!" Ida, Ochako Uraraka came running up, panting slightly. "We're in the same class." "How cool is that?" Izuku felt his face heat up. "Talk to the girl. Don't be weird." "Why yeah. It's great." "Your ankle, is it okay?" Recovery girl fixed it up good as new. She beamed, pumping a fist. "Although I feel kinda tired. But anyway, let's go." "Class 1A, right?" "Class 1A. The door was enormous. It was easily 20 feet tall, designed, Izuku assumed, for students with gigantification quirks or mutations. He took a deep breath and slid it open. The classroom was already chaotic. "Get your feet off the desk." "Ha! It is disrespectful to the UA upperclassmen who used this desk before you, and to the craftsmen who built it." "Shut up, Four Eyes. What junior high did you go to, you side character?" Izuku froze. It was Bakugo and Ida again. Bakugo was reclining in his chair, feet crossed on the desk, looking like he owned the building. Ida noticed Izuku. "Ah! Midoriya! You're here!" The room went silent. Every eye turned to the door. Bakugo's gaze snapped to Izuku. For a moment, the explosive rage that usually defined his expression faltered, replaced by a complicated mix of confusion and wariness. He looked at the pouch on Izuku's hip. He clicked his tongue and looked away, staring out the window. "He's ignoring you," Liba noted. "That's new. Usually, he tries to set your eyebrows on fire." "I'm Izuku Midoriya," he said to the class, bowing slightly. "I'm Eijiro Kurishima." A boy with red, spiked hair grinned. "Man, that sword thing you did at the exam? Crazy manly. How do you carry that thing? Is it a summoning quirk?" A girl with earphone jacks asked. "Something like that," Izuku murmured. "If you're here to make friends, pack up and leave." The voice came from the floor. The class looked down. Lying in the doorway, wrapped in a yellow sleeping bag like a metamorphic caterpillar, was a man. He looked exhausted. His hair was a mess, his eyes were bloodshot, and he was sucking on a jelly pouch. He unzipped the bag and stood up. He wore all black, with a long, gray scarf wrapped loosely around his neck. "It took you 8 seconds to quiet down," he deadpanned. "Time is a limited resource. You kids aren't rational enough." He walked to the podium. "I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa. Homeroom teacher? The class gasped. Put these on. Aizawa pulled a blue gym uniform out of his sleeping bag. And meet me on the P grounds. The P grounds. The air outside was crisp. The students of Class 1A stood in a loose cluster, wearing their UA gym uniforms. Izuku adjusted his. It fit well, showing off the definition in his arms. He had strapped the grimoire belt over the tracksuit. A quirk apprehension test? The class echoed. But what about the entrance ceremony? The guidance counselor meeting? Uraraka asked. If you want to be a hero, you don't have time for such leisurely events, Aizawa said, his back turned to them. UA is known for its freestyle educational traditions. That applies to the teachers as well. He turned to face them, his dark eyes sweeping over the group. Softball throw. Standing long jump. 50-meter dash. Endurance running. Grip strength. Upper body training. Seated toe touch. Sit-ups. You did these in middle school, right? But you were forbidden from using your quirks. Aizawa held up a ball. Bakugo. You finished first in the entrance exam. What was your softball throw record in middle school? 67 meters, Bakugo grunted. Try it with your quirk. Anything goes, as long as you stay in the circle. Bakugo stepped into the circle. He stretched his shoulder, a feral grin spreading across his face. Die. He whispered. Die. Izuku thought. Boom. Bakugo threw the ball, adding a massive explosion at the point of release. The ball shot into the sky like a mortar shell, leaving a trail of smoke. 705.2 meters, Aizawa read from his device, showing the class. Whoa! 700 meters? Kaminari shouted. This looks like fun! Mina Ashido cheered. We can use our quirks as much as we want. Awesome! Siro added. Aizawa's expression darkened. The air temperature seemed to drop. Fun, huh? He lowered the device. You have 3 years to become heroes. Will you have an attitude like that during a crisis? During a disaster? He brushed his hair back. All right. Whoever comes in last place in all 8 tests will be judged to have no potential. Aizawa smiled. It was a terrifying, shark-like expression, and will be punished with immediate expulsion. Huh? Expulsion? Uraraka cried. It's the first day. That's too unreasonable. Natural disasters are unreasonable, Aizawa countered coldly. Villain attacks are unreasonable. The job of a hero is to overturn the unreasonable. If you thought this was going to be a fun hangout at McDonald's, you're in the wrong place. He pointed a finger at them. Welcome to the Department of Heroics. Izuku clenched his fist. The grimoire pulsed against his hip. Expulsion. Izuku thought. In the past, I would have panicked. I would have been shaking, but he remembered the beach. The months of vomiting from exhaustion. The weight of the Demon Slayer's sword. I didn't crawl through hell just to get sent home on day 1. That's the spirit, Liba said. Let's crush them. Test 1, 50-meter dash. On your mark. Get set, pow. Ida and Ajri were first. Ida used his engine quirk, blasting across the finish line. 3.04 seconds. Izuku watched carefully. He was up next, against Bakugo. Midoriya versus Bakugo. They stepped to the line. Bakugo glared at him. Don't trip, Deku. Focus on yourself, Kaken, Izuku replied, staring straight ahead. Bakugo twitched. Start. Bakugo launched himself backward with explosions, propelling himself forward. Izuku simply ran. He dug his toes into the track and exploded forward with raw, kinetic power. No quirks. No engines. Just the explosive fast-twitch muscle fibers he had cultivated under All Might's torture regimen. Bakugo crossed the line. 4.13 seconds. Izuku crossed right behind him. 5.68 seconds. The robot announced. Whoa, Siro said. That guy, he didn't use a quirk, did he? That's just raw speed. He's fast for a non-enhancement type, Ida noted. Bakugo panted, looking back at the time. TCH. Still slow. But his eyes betrayed his annoyance. A sub-6 second dash without a quirk was athletic excellence. Test 2, grip strength. Izuku took the dynamometer. He squeezed. He imagined crushing a refrigerator. Beep. 120 kilograms, the machine read. Whoa! 540 kilos. Someone shouted. It was Shoji, the boy with 6 arms. Izuku looked at his 120. It wasn't superhuman like Shoji, but it was 3 times the average for a teenager. Use the black mode next time, Liba suggested. We could crush the machine. Not yet, Izuku thought. I need to save the stamina. Test 3, standing long jump. Bakugo used explosions to fly across the sandbox. Aoyama used his naval laser to propel himself. Izuku stood at the line. He channeled breathing. He swung his arms and jumped. He cleared the sandbox entirely. Just physics, he muttered, landing in a roll. Aizawa watched him, marking something on a clipboard. Test 4, repeated side steps. Mineta, the small boy with great balls on his head, dominated this one, bouncing back and forth. Izuku performed well, his agility high, but nothing supernatural. The assessment so far. Izuku was panting slightly. He was doing well. Consistently in the top tier physically, though lagging behind the extreme mobility quirks. But Aizawa was watching him. Specifically, watching the book. The teacher's eyes were narrowed. Midoriya Izuku. No quirk factor registered. Yet he carries a support item that seemingly generates mass out of nothing. The entrance exam footage showed him wielding a sword that should be impossible to lift. Is it a strength stockpile quirk? No. His body moves naturally, not enhanced. Is it the book? Aizawa hated unknowns. Unknowns got heroes killed. Test 5, the ball throw. This was it. The main event. Uraraka stepped up. She touched the ball. It floated. She threw it. Infinity, the machine read. The class cheered. Okay, Aizawa said. Midoriya. You're up. Izuku walked to the circle. He picked up the ball. The class went quiet. They had seen him use the sword at the exam. They were expecting something huge. Is he gonna use the sword to hit it? Kaminari whispered. That would be against the rules, wouldn't it? Izuku stood in the circle. Liba, Izuku thought. If I just throw it, I'll get maybe 60 meters. I need torque. Black mode, Liba answered instantly. Channel the anti-magic into your arm. Coat the skin. It increases durability and explosive output. It rejects the air resistance. Izuku took a deep breath. One-winged focus. 5%. A black, viscous aura began to leak from the grimoire. It snaked up Izuku's leg, across his torso, and wrapped around his right arm. It looked like black lightning mixed with oil. The class gasped. Whoa! What is that? It looks evil. Izuku wound up. He felt the power surging. He prepared to unleash everything. Smash! He threw the ball. The ball left his hand. It traveled. 46 meters. It landed with a pathetic plop. Izuku blinked. The black energy on his arm had vanished the moment he released the ball. What? Izuku looked at his hand. My power, it cut out. I erased it. Izuku turned. Aizawa stood there. His hair was floating, defying gravity. His eyes glowed a piercing red. The scarf around his neck seemed to writhe like a living thing. That entrance exam was definitely not rational enough, Aizawa said, his voice dripping with disdain. Allowing a student who can't control his own power to enroll. He stepped closer. From what I saw, you rely on that cursed object. You summon a weapon, you swing it around. But just now, you tried to channel energy into your body. And the moment you did, you lost control. Aizawa glared at him. You can't be a hero with a power that relies on unstable artifacts, Midoriya Izuku. Izuku stared at him. He looked at Aizawa's goggles. Erase your hero, Eraserhead. He knew him. He erased quirks by looking at them. But there was a problem. Izuku looked down at the grimoire. It was still floating at his hip. The black aura was gone from his arm, yes, but the book itself hadn't closed. The connection to Liba wasn't severed. Hey, Liba's voice was clear in his head. Why is this hobo staring at us? He thinks he erased you, Izuku realized. Izuku looked back at Aizawa. Teacher, Izuku said calmly. Aizawa blinked. Usually, students panicked when their quirks were erased. You erased my enhancement, Izuku said, using air quotes. But you can't erase a curse. Aizawa's eyes widened slightly. His quirk factor, it's still reading as 0. I'm not erasing anything. I'm just blocking the external flow. Wait, if Aizawa's erasure targeted the genetic quirk factor, and Izuku didn't have one, then Aizawa wasn't actually stopping anything. The black energy hadn't disappeared because Aizawa erased it. It disappeared because Aizawa's erasure emits a subtle wave that disrupts activation pathways. It had disrupted Izuku's focus, startling him. But the power itself? The anti-magic? It was immune to quirks. Therefore, it was immune to erasure. Izuku grinned. It was a small, nervous, but defiant grin. You can try to erase me, Sensei, Izuku said, gripping the ball again. But my power isn't something you can turn off. Aizawa's hair fell back down. He closed his eyes. TCH. We're wasting time. Hurry up and throw. He's bluffing, Aizawa thought. I cut his connection. He should be powerless. Izuku took a deep breath. Liba. Full output on the right arm. Don't let it dissipate. Got it. Let's show him what happens when he tries to stare down a devil. Vurum. The black energy exploded out of the grimoire. This time, it was violent. It coated Izuku's right arm in a jagged, obsidian gauntlet of energy. Red sparks flew from his shoulder. Aizawa's eyes snapped open. He activated erasure again. His hair flew up. The red gaze hit Izuku. The black energy did not vanish. In fact, the anti-magic flared brighter, as if offended by the attempt to suppress it. The red glow of Aizawa's quirk met the black void of the grimoire's power, and the void swallowed it. What? Aizawa gasped. It's not erasing? Izuku stepped forward. He planted his leg. He twisted his torso, the muscles screaming under the strain of the supernatural torque. This is... Izuku roared. My power! Boom! The ball didn't just fly. It broke the sound barrier. A cone of condensed air blasted out from the circle, kicking up a dust cloud that engulfed the entire class. The ball soared. And soared. It punched a hole through a passing cloud. Izuku stood in the circle, his arms smoking, the black energy slowly receding back into the book. His fingers throbbed, but they weren't broken. The anti-magic reinforced the bone structure. Aizawa looked at his device. The numbers climbed. And stopped. He turned the screen to the class. 705.3 meters. 1 meter further than Bakugo. Silence reigned. Then, Izuku turned to Aizawa. He was panting, clutching his right arm. Teacher. Izuku rasped. I'm not going home yet. Aizawa stared at the boy. For the first time in a long time, the cynical hero felt a shiver of genuine surprise. He bypassed erasure. Not by hiding, but by overpowering the concept itself. What is that book? Aizawa's lips curled into a wide, terrifying grin. No, Aizawa said softly. I suppose you aren't. DKU. An explosion ripped through the silence. Bakugo launched himself from the crowd, his face twisted in pure, unadulterated rage. What the hell was that? Tell me. You're quirkless. How did you do that? He was fast. He was going to kill him. Izuku flinched, raising his arms. Wish. Suddenly, the scarf wrapped around Bakugo, binding his arms and chest. Bakugo slammed to a halt, struggling against the carbon fiber cloth. Gah! Let me go! Stop it, Aizawa said, his hair floating again. Don't make me use my quirk so much. I have dry eye. You erased my quirk? Bakugo yelled, trying to ignite his palms but failing. We're wasting time. Aizawa dropped the capture weapon, releasing Bakugo. Next is sit-ups. Bakugo fell to his knees, panting. He glared at Izuku. We're not done, Deku. Izuku looked at his childhood friend. He didn't look away. I know, Izuku said quietly. The rest of the tests. The incident with the ball throw changed the atmosphere. The class looked at Izuku differently. He wasn't just the quiet kid or the sword guy. He was the guy who defied Aizawa. UPS, Izuku was a machine. His core strength, built from lifting refrigerators, allowed him to crank out reps at a speed that rivaled the quirk-enhanced students. Seated toe touch, Izuku was flexible. Not amazing, but solid. Distance run, this was where stamina came in. Izuku ran steadily. He wasn't as fast as Ida or Yaoyorozu, who created a bike, but he outpaced the majority of the class simply because he didn't get tired. His lungs were adapted to the hellish air of the trash beach. The results. The sun was setting. The students gathered around Aizawa, exhausted and anxious. Okay, Aizawa said, tapping his tablet. I'll just show the cumulative results all at once. It's a waste of time to read them out. A hologram projected into the air. Izuku squeezed his eyes shut. I did my best. I didn't use the sword much, but my physical stats were high. And the ball throw was top tier. He opened one eye. 1. Momo Yaoyorozu. 2. Shoto Todoroki. 3. Katsuki Bakugo. 4. Izuku Midoriya. 20. Toru Hagakure, Invisible Girl. Izuku let out a breath he felt he'd been holding since morning. 4th place. He beat Ida. He beat Kirishima. He was in the top 5. By the way, Aizawa said, turning off the hologram. The expulsion thing was a logical ruse. Huh! The class screamed. It was a deception to draw out your maximum potential, Aizawa said deadpan. What? Uraraka and Ida looked like their souls had left their bodies. Well, that was obvious, Momo Yaoyorozu said, flipping her hair. If he expelled us, it would reflect poorly on the school. She believed it too, Liba snickered. Look at her shaking hands. Aizawa turned to leave. Syllabus sheets are in the classroom. Look them over. Midoriya. Izuku froze. Why yes, sir? Aizawa stopped, looking back over his shoulder. That curse of yours, Aizawa said, his voice low enough that only Izuku could hear. Don't think this means I trust it. Support item or not, if that power ever controls you, I will stop you. Physically if I have to. Izuku swallowed. He nodded. Understood, sir. I won't let it control me. I control it. Aizawa held his gaze for a second longer, then turned away. Dismissed. The gate. Walking home was a daze. Izuku felt heavy, but good. Midoriya, Ida and Uraraka caught up to him. You were amazing, Deku! Uraraka cheered. 4th place. And that ball throw! You were like whoosh. Indeed, Ida nodded. Though your confrontation with Mr. Aizawa was risky. However, the results speak for themselves. You possess a formidable will. Thanks, guys, Izuku smiled. They walked together toward the station. So, Uraraka asked, pointing at the pouch. What is it? Aizawa-sensei called it a curse. Izuku patted the grimoire. It's complicated, Izuku said. It's a power that was left behind. A power nobody wanted because it was broken. He looked at the 5-leaf clover. But it found me. And I think it fits me perfectly. Behind them, hidden in the shadows of the school gate, Bakugo watched them leave. His fists were clenched so tight his palms were bleeding. 4th place. Bakugo muttered. He's climbing. He's actually climbing. Sparks popped against his skin. I'll crush him. I'll crush everything. And deeper in the shadows, unseen by anyone, a figure scratched his neck. He was cool, Tamura Shigaraki whispered, watching through a monitor from a distant bar. But he cheated. That power, it's not a quirk. It feels like a glitch in the game, sensei. Shigaraki turned to the dark screen behind him. I want a game over for that kid.